The stars looked different from the observation deck of Station Alpha, humanity's most distant outpost at the edge of known space. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cold viewport and watched the swirling nebula that marked the border between human territory and the unknown. 3 months had passed since the first alien transmission reached Earth, and now she stood ready to make history as humanity's first diplomatic contact with an alien civilization. Elena had been chosen for this mission not because she was the smartest scientist on Earth, but because she understood people. She had spent 15 years studying xenobiology and another 10 working with diverse human cultures across the colonies. More importantly, she was a mother. The mission planners believed that maternal instincts might prove valuable when dealing with an unknown alien mindset. The alien ship appeared without warning, materializing from what seemed like empty space. Elena had expected something metallic and mechanical like human vessels, but the craft before her looked more like a living crystal formation. Translucent walls pulsed with soft light, and the entire structure seemed to breathe as it moved through space. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Station Alpha, yet it moved with the grace of a dancer. Elena's communication officer, Lieutenant Tom Baker, looked up from his console with wide eyes. "They're requesting permission to dock. Doctor, their translation protocols are already online. Somehow, they learned our language from our initial transmission." "Grant permission," Elena replied, though her heart hammered against her ribs. She had practiced this moment countless times in simulations, but nothing could prepare her for the reality of meeting an alien species. She thought of her 3 children back on Earth, Maya, James, and Lilana, and wondered what kind of future this encounter might create for them. The docking process took 2 hours. The alien ship didn't use mechanical clamps or airlocks like human vessels. Instead, it seemed to grow a crystalline tube that merged seamlessly with Station Alpha's hull. When the connection was complete, the walls became transparent, allowing Elena to see into the alien vessel. 3 beings emerged from the crystal tunnel, and Elena's breath caught in her throat. They were beautiful in a way that hurt to look at directly. Each alien stood nearly 8 feet tall with translucent skin that revealed glowing organs beneath. They moved on 4 legs that ended in delicate hand-like appendages, while 2 additional arms sprouted from their torso. Their heads were elongated and elegant, with large eyes that shifted color from blue to violet to silver. The lead alien stepped forward, and when it spoke, its voice resonated like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am Commander Kira of the Crystalline Collective. I come as herald for our queen, who has traveled far to meet with your species." Elena bowed slightly, hoping the gesture would be understood as respectful. "I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, representing humanity. We are honored by your presence and eager to learn about your people." Commander Kira's head tilted in what might have been curiosity. "Your translation of our words is adequate, but I sense deeper meanings that do not cross the barrier between our minds. Perhaps understanding will grow with time." Over the next several hours, Elena learned basic facts about the Crystalline Collective. They controlled a vast empire spanning 47 star systems, with billions of beings living in perfect harmony under the rule of their immortal queen. They had no concept of individual families, as humans understood them. Children were created in biochambers according to genetic compatibility matrices, then raised in communal nurseries by designated caretakers. The queen made all decisions for her people, who existed in rigid castes determined by their biological functions. "Your queen must carry an enormous burden," Elena observed during one of their sessions, "caring for so many people across such a vast territory." Commander Kira's eyes shifted to a deeper shade of blue. "The queen does not care, as you might understand the term. She calculates, decides, and commands. Emotional attachments would compromise her judgment and weaken her ability to rule efficiently." Elena couldn't hide her surprise. But surely she feels something for her people? Some form of love or protective instinct? Love. The alien word came out strange and distorted to the translation system. This concept does not exist in our language. We have duty, efficiency, genetic compatibility, and survival imperatives. What you call love appears to be a biological malfunction that interferes with logical decision-making. That evening, Elena sat alone in her quarters, thinking about the conversation. She pulled out her tablet and scrolled through pictures of her children. Maya, now 16, with her father's stubborn chin and her mother's curious eyes. James at 14, all knees and elbows, but with a heart bigger than the galaxy. And Anna, barely 8 years old, who still crawled into Elena's bed during thunderstorms. Elena had left Earth 6 months ago to prepare for this mission. The children had cried at the spaceport, and Elena had promised to call them every day. She had kept that promise, even though the time delay meant their conversations were stilted and awkward. Missing bedtime stories and scraped knees and parent-teacher conferences felt like missing pieces of her soul. The next morning brought an unexpected development. Commander Kira arrived with news that their queen wished to speak directly with Elena. She has reviewed our initial reports and finds your species curious. She will arrive within 1 solar rotation. Elena spent the next 24 hours in frantic preparation. The queen of an interstellar empire was coming to meet humanity, and Elena will be the first human to speak with her. The weight of responsibility felt crushing until she remembered something her daughter Maya had said before Elena left Earth. "Mom, just be yourself." That's what you always tell us when we're nervous about meeting new people. The queen's arrival surpassed even Elena's expanded expectations. Her vessel dwarfed the previous ship, a crystalline palace that seemed to contain entire cities within its transparent walls. When Queen Lyra emerged, Elena understood immediately why an entire species would bow before her. The queen stood 12 feet tall, her body a perfect fusion of organic beauty and crystalline structure. Her skin was completely transparent, revealing organs that pulsed with rainbow light. 6 arms moved with fluid grace, while her legs seemed to float rather than walk. Her head was crowned with crystal formations that caught and refracted light into patterns too complex for human eyes to fully process. "I am Queen Lyra, eternal ruler of the crystalline collective, mother of 47 worlds, keeper of the great pattern." Her voice filled the entire docking bay, resonating in frequencies that Elena felt in her bones. "You are the human called Elena Vasquez." Elena bowed deeply, fighting the urge to kneel. "Yes, Your Majesty. I am honored beyond words to meet you." Queen Lyra's massive eyes, each the size of Elena's head, focused on a human with unsettling intensity. "My commander reports that you spoke of caring for subjects and question our methods of child-rearing. These concepts intrigue me. Explain how emotional attachment enhances survival, rather than compromising it." Elena took a deep breath, knowing that her answer might determine the future relationship between their species. "Your Majesty, in human society, we believe that emotional bonds make us stronger, not weaker. When a parent loves a child, they will fight harder to protect them than any amount of duty could compel. When people care for each other, they work together more effectively and make sacrifices for the greater good." "Sacrifices," Queen Lyra repeated, her voice dropping to a whisper that still filled the room. "You would harm yourself to benefit another?" "Every day," Elena replied without hesitation. "I left my own children on Earth to come here because I believe this mission could create a better future for them. Parents make countless small sacrifices, sleep, comfort, personal desires, because their children's well-being matters more than their own." Queen Lyra was silent for a long moment, her rainbow organs pulsing in patterns Elena couldn't interpret. Finally, she spoke again. "You have children." 3 of them. Maya is 16, James is 14, and Anna is 8. Elena couldn't keep the smile out of her voice when she talked about them. "Tell me about them." For the next hour, Elena found herself describing her children's personalities, their dreams and fears, their silly jokes and profound questions. She talked about Maya's ambition to become a starship engineer, James's love of ancient music, and Anna's habit of naming every stray animal she encountered. Queen Lyra listened without interruption, her massive eyes never leaving Elena's face. When Elena finished, Queen Lyra asked a question that caught her completely off guard. "How do you know when you have succeeded as a parent?" Elena considered the question carefully. "I suppose success isn't a single moment or achievement. It's seeing them grow into kind, capable people who can stand on their own. It's knowing that they feel secure enough to take risks, loved enough to love others, and confident enough to be themselves in a difficult world." Queen Lyra's crystal crown flared with sudden light, And if they make choices you disagree with, then I trust that I've taught them well enough to learn from their mistakes, and I love them through whatever comes next. The queen fell silent again, and Elena began to worry that she had somehow offended the alien ruler. But when Queen Lyra spoke again, her voice carried a note Elena hadn't heard before, something that sounded almost like loneliness. In 40,000 years of rule, no being has ever spoken to me of love, or sacrifice, or trust. My subjects obey because they must. They serve because it is their function. But you describe bonds that exist by choice, emotions that strengthen rather than weaken. The queen's eyes shifted to a deep purple. I find myself curious about these human concepts of family and parenthood. Elena sensed an opportunity that could change everything. Would you like to learn more, Your Majesty? I could share our customs and traditions, show you how human families work. Queen Lyra's entire body seemed to brighten. Yes, Elena Vasquez. Teach me about this thing you call motherhood. 3 weeks had passed since Queen Lyra's unexpected request, and Elena found herself aboard the most magnificent vessel she had ever imagined. The Queen's palace ship was a marvel of crystalline architecture that defied human understanding of physics. Walls of living crystal grew and shifted to accommodate its inhabitants, while gardens of light-bearing plants provided both beauty and sustenance. Elena had been given quarters that rivaled the finest hotels on Earth, complete with a viewport that showed the swirling colors of hyperspace as they traveled toward the collective's capital world. Elena had spent those weeks preparing for what might be the most important cultural exchange in human history. She had requested specific items from Earth, and the Human Diplomatic Corps had worked around the clock to compile what Elena called her motherhood toolkit. Now, as she stood in the Queen's private chambers, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Queen Lyra's personal space was unlike anything Elena could have conceived. The room seemed to exist in multiple dimensions, with platforms of crystal floating at various heights connected by bridges of hardened light. Waterfalls of liquid starlight cascaded from unseen sources, creating a gentle music that resonated through Elena's bones. At the center of it all, Queen Lyra reclined on what could only be described as a throne made of crystallized time itself, its faceted surfaces showing glimpses of past and future. "You have brought items from your world," Queen Lyra observed, her rainbow eyes focusing on a collection of objects Elena had arranged on a nearby crystal table. Explain their significance to this concept of motherhood. Elena picked up the first item, a small wooden frame containing a photograph. "This is a picture of my children taken last year during our summer vacation. In human culture, we capture moments of happiness to remember them when times are difficult." She held up the photo so Queen Lyra could see Maya, James, and Anna building sandcastles on a beach, their faces bright with laughter and joy. Queen Lyra leaned forward, her massive form casting prismatic shadows across the room. "These small humans share genetic material with you, yet they appear to possess individual characteristics and expressions. How is this possible if they were created according to optimal genetic patterns?" Elena smiled, remembering how many times she had been asked similar questions by the children themselves. "Human children aren't designed, Your Majesty. They're born from the combination of two parents' genetics, and chance determines many of their traits. Maya got her father's mathematical mind, but my curiosity about the world. James inherited his grandfather's musical ability, but developed his own passion for ancient earth songs. Anna has my stubborn streak, but her own unique way of seeing beauty in everything around her. Random genetic combination," Queen Lyra mused, her crystal crown flickering with thoughts too rapid for Elena to follow. "This seems inefficient. How do you ensure optimal outcomes for your society?" "We don't," Elena replied, and she could see this answer trouble the alien queen. "We believe that diversity makes us stronger. When children have different talents and perspectives, they solve problems in ways their parents never could imagine. My daughter Maya sees mathematical patterns in music that help her understand both better. James writes songs that combine ancient melodies with modern themes in ways that touch people's hearts. Anna asks questions that make adults reconsider things they thought they understood." Elena reached for another item, a small stuffed bear that had clearly seen better days. Its brown fur was worn smooth in places. One ear was slightly torn, and it carried the indefinable scent of childhood. This belonged to Anna when she was younger. She called him Mr. Patches and took him everywhere. Queen Lyra's eyes shifted to a deeper shade of violet as she examined the worn toy. This object appears to have no functional purpose. Why would a developing human form attachment to it? Because it provided comfort. Elena explained, holding the bear gently. When Anna was scared of the dark or nervous about starting school or missing me when I had to travel for work, she would hold Mr. Patches and feel safe. The bear represented security and love, even when I couldn't be there. Security through an inanimate object, rather than through proper environmental controls and threat assessment protocols. Queen Lyra said slowly, "Your species finds comfort in symbols rather than systems." Elena nodded, then reached for a small device that looked deceptively simple. "This contains recordings of bedtime stories I used to tell my children. Would you like to hear one?" Queen Lyra's consent came as a gentle chiming of crystal against crystal. Elena activated the device, and her own voice filled the chamber, warm and gentle, as she began to tell the story of a brave little star who was afraid to shine. As the story unfolded, Elena watched Queen Lyra's reaction with fascination. The alien ruler's massive form seemed to relax, her crystal crown dimming to a soft glow. When Elena's recorded voice described how the little star's mother encouraged her to shine brightly because the universe needed her unique light, Queen Lyra's eyes began to shift through colors Elena had never seen before. "The story contains no practical information," Queen Lyra observed when the recording ended. "Yet I find myself affected by its message. How does this serve child development?" Elena set down the device and moved to another item, a collection of drawings made with crayon on construction paper. Children don't just need facts and skills, Your Majesty. They need to understand their place in the world and believe they have value. Stories teach empathy, courage, and hope. They help children imagine possibilities beyond their immediate circumstances. She held up one of Anna's drawings, a colorful picture of their family standing in front of their house, with a rainbow overhead and flowers scattered across green grass. Anna drew this after her first day of school. She was scared about leaving home, but she drew our family to remind herself that we would always be there when she came back. Queen Lyra extended one of her 6 arms, and Elena carefully placed a drawing in her crystalline palm. The alien queen studied the simple artwork with the same intensity she might have given to a scientific report. The proportions are incorrect, and the colors do not match actual wavelengths observed in nature. "But it's perfect," Elena said softly, "because it shows how she sees us. Look at how big she drew the smiles, how bright the colors are. This picture shows love, not just visual accuracy." "Love," Queen Lyra repeated, and the word seemed to resonate differently now than it had 3 weeks ago. "You have used this term frequently, but I struggle to understand its practical application. How does this emotion enhance survival probabilities?" Elena picked up the last item from her collection, a small music box that played a simple lullaby when opened. As the gentle melody filled the chamber, she began to explain something that felt almost impossible to put into words. When James was 5 years old, he got lost in a crowded market on Earth. I spent 4 hours searching for him. And during that time, I would have torn apart the entire planet to find him. When I finally found him hiding behind a fruit stand, scared and crying, the relief I felt was stronger than any emotion I had ever experienced. That's love, Your Majesty. It's the force that makes parents run into burning buildings to save their children, that keeps mothers awake all night caring for sick babies, that drives fathers to work extra jobs to pay for their children's education. Queen Lyra's form had become completely still, her rainbow organs pulsing in slow, hypnotic rhythms. This emotion compels behavior that prioritizes another being's welfare over one's own survival. "Yes," Elena confirmed, "and it makes us stronger because when everyone in a family or community feels that way about each other, they create something more powerful than any individual could achieve alone." "Show me more," Queen Lyra commanded, and Elena detected something new in the alien queen's voice. Hunger, perhaps, or longing for something she had never known existed. Elena activated her tablet and began displaying videos from Earth. She showed Queen Lyra children taking their first steps while parents cheered encouragement. Families gathered around dinner tables sharing stories of their day. Mothers singing lullabies to babies who couldn't understand the words but responded to love in their voices. In the collective, young ones are removed from biochambers and immediately assigned to educational facilities. Queen Lyra observed. They learn efficiency, obedience, and their designated functions. But these human children appear to engage in activities with no obvious productive purpose. Elena laughed, remembering countless afternoons spent building blanket forts and having tea parties with stuffed animals. Play isn't productive in the way adults usually measure productivity, but it's essential for healthy development. When children play, they learn to solve problems creatively, to cooperate with others, to imagine new possibilities. Some of humanity's greatest discoveries came from adults who maintained their sense of wonder and playfulness. Queen Lyra watched a video of Elena's 3 children putting on a backyard performance of a play they had written themselves, complete with costumes made from old sheets and cardboard props. Maya directed while James provided musical accompaniment on a toy keyboard, and Anna played every character by quickly changing hats between scenes. They appear to derive satisfaction from creating something with no external validation or reward, Queen Lyra noted. The reward is the joy of creating together, of making each other laugh, of turning imagination into reality, Elena explained. And look at my face in the background of that video. See how proud I am? That's another part of love, celebrating your children's achievements, even the small ones. As the evening progressed, Elena shared more aspects of human family life. She explained birthday celebrations, where families gather to honor the anniversary of a child's birth. She described holiday traditions that brought extended families together across vast distances. She talked about the bittersweet pride parents felt when children grew old enough to leave home and start families of their own. Your species deliberately create emotional attachments that cause pain when severed, Queen Lyra observed. This seems counterproductive. Elena nodded, thinking of her own parents and how much she missed them since their deaths several years ago. Yes, love involves risk. The deeper you love someone, the more it hurts if you lose them. But humans believe that a life without love isn't really living. The joy and connection we experience makes the potential pain worthwhile. Queen Lyra rose from her throne, her 12-foot form towering over Elena as she moved closer to examine the collection of human artifacts. I have ruled for 40,000 years, Elena Vasquez. I have made decisions that affected trillions of lives, conquered star systems, and maintained perfect order across my empire. Yet I have never experienced what you describe as the fundamental driving force of your species. Elena felt a sudden surge of sadness of this magnificent being who had achieved everything except the simple joy of loving and being loved. It's not too late, Your Majesty. Love isn't limited by age or species or past experience. It only requires the willingness to open your heart to another being. Queen Lyra's eyes shifted to a shade of silver Elena had never seen before, and when she spoke, her voice carried a vulnerability that seemed impossible from such a powerful creature. Teach me, Elena Vasquez. Show me how to love as a mother loves her children. 6 months had passed since Elena began teaching Queen Lyra about human families, and the changes in the alien ruler were impossible to ignore. What had started as intellectual curiosity had blossomed into something deeper and more profound than either of them had expected. Elena remained aboard the palace ship as it traveled through the crystalline collective's territory, establishing a routine that felt surprisingly natural despite the vast differences between their species. Every morning, Elena would join Queen Lyra in the observation chamber, where the alien queen conducted her daily communications with various worlds under her rule. What had once been a series of cold, efficient commands had gradually transformed into something Elena recognized as genuine concern for her subjects' well-being. Instead of simply ordering production quotas and compliance reports, Queen Lyra now asked about injured workers, inquired about food shortages on distant colonies, and actually listened when her subordinates reported problems. Elena watched from her designated platform as Queen Lyra spoke with Commander Vale, the military leader of a mining world called Nexus 7. The holographic projection showed a crystalline being whose usual composure seemed shaken as he delivered his report. Your Majesty, the mining accident in Sector 12 has resulted in 17 casualties. Medical teams are working to repair the damaged workers, and production should resume within 3 rotations. In the past, Queen Lyra would have acknowledged the report and moved on to the next item of business. But now, Elena saw the alien queen lean forward with something that looked remarkably like concern. Commander Vale, what is the current status of the injured workers? Are they receiving adequate care? Queen Lyra's voice carried a warmth that hadn't existed 6 months ago. Commander Vale's crystal crown flickered with confusion. Your Majesty, medical protocols are being followed. Damaged units will be restored to functionality according to standard procedures. I did not ask about procedures, Queen Lyra replied, and Elena heard an edge of something new in her voice, maternal protectiveness. I asked about their care. Are they in pain? Do they have family members who wish to be with them during recovery? What caused this accident? And how can we prevent future harm to our people? Elena felt a surge of pride as she watched Queen Lyra apply the lessons they had discussed. The alien queen was learning to see her subjects not as functional units, but as individuals worthy of compassion and protection. Commander Vale's confusion was evident even through the holographic transmission. Your Majesty, I do not understand these inquiries. The workers serve their function. When that function is impaired, we repair them. Emotional considerations are not relevant to operational efficiency. Queen Lyra's massive form seemed to grow even larger as she responded. Commander Vale, you will personally visit each injured worker. You will ensure they receive not just medical treatment, but comfort and support. If they have families, bring them together. If they are alone, assign someone to stay with them. No being under my rule should suffer in isolation. After the transmission ended, Queen Lyra turned to Elena with eyes that swirled with colors of uncertainty and determination. Did I respond appropriately? In human terms, was that maternal behavior? Elena smiled, remembering countless times she had rushed to comfort her own children after accidents and injuries. Yes, Your Majesty. You showed exactly the kind of protective concern that human mothers feel for their children. But I could see that Commander Vale didn't understand your new approach. Queen Lyra's crystal crown dimmed slightly. Many of my subjects struggle to comprehend the changes in my leadership style. They were created and raised in a system that values efficiency above all else. Emotional connections are foreign concepts to them. Change is always difficult, Elena agreed. When I was learning to be a mother, I made mistakes every day. The important thing is that you're trying to care for your people in a deeper way. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from another part of the ship. Admiral Kex, Queen Lyra's chief military advisor, appeared as a shimmering hologram with news that would test everything the Queen had learned about maternal love. Your Majesty, we have received reports of unrest on 3 worlds in the Outer Rim. Colonial governors report that productivity has decreased significantly, and some subjects are questioning established protocols. There are requests for explanations regarding your new policies of individual concern and emotional consideration. Elena felt a chill run through her as she realized the implications. Queen Lyra's transformation was creating ripples throughout the collective, and not everyone was responding positively to the changes. Queen Lyra stood silent for several minutes, her rainbow organs pulsing in patterns Elena had learned to recognize as deep thought. Finally, she responded in a voice that carried both strength and sadness. Admiral Kex, arrange for me to speak directly with the governors of these worlds. I wish to address their concerns personally. Over the following days, Elena watched as Queen Lyra attempted to explain her new philosophy to beings who had never experienced anything beyond rigid hierarchy and predetermined roles. The conversations were difficult and often frustrating, as the Queen tried to convey concepts that had no equivalent in the collective's structured society. During one particularly challenging exchange with Governor Thane of the agricultural world Verdant Prime, Queen Lyra's patience was tested to its limits. The governor, a being whose crystalline form pulsed with agitation, spoke with barely concealed hostility. Your Majesty, these new policies of emotional consideration are causing chaos among the worker populations. Productivity has fallen by 12% because workers now expect individual attention and comfort when they should simply perform their designated functions. The human influence has introduced instability into our perfect system. Elena saw Queen Lyra's form tense at the criticism, but the alien ruler responded with remarkable restraint. Governor Thane, I understand that change is difficult. But I have learned that beings who feel valued and cared for actually work more effectively than those who are treated merely as functional units. A mother does not love her children because they are productive. She loves them because they exist, and that love makes them stronger. Mothers are a human concept, Your Majesty. We do not reproduce through emotional bonding. We create offspring through scientific optimization. Love is inefficiency. Queen Lyra's eyes flashed with colors Elena had never seen before, and when she spoke, her voice resonated with power that made the crystal walls of the chamber vibrate. Governor Thane, I have experienced 40,000 years of efficient rule. I have conquered worlds, organized perfect societies, and maintained absolute order. But I have never known the joy of watching a being grow and flourish under my care. I have never felt the fierce protectiveness that drives a parent to sacrifice everything for their child's well-being. These human emotions have not made me weaker, Governor. They have shown me what true strength looks like. The transmission ended abruptly as Governor Thane severed the connection, and Elena could see that Queen Lyra was deeply troubled by the encounter. The alien queen moved to the vast viewport that showed the swirling colors of hyperspace. Her 6 arms clasped behind her back in a gesture Elena had learned indicated serious contemplation. Perhaps I am making an error, Queen Lyra said quietly. My subjects were created for a system of perfect efficiency. These human concepts of love and emotional bonding may be incompatible with their nature. Elena joined Queen Lyra at the viewport, looking out at the cosmic dance of light and energy beyond the ship's hull. Your Majesty, when my daughter Maya was learning to walk, she fell down hundreds of times. Every time she fell, I wanted to pick her up and carry her so she wouldn't get hurt. But I knew that if I did that, she would never learn to walk on her own. Sometimes love means allowing others to struggle so they can grow stronger. Queen Lyra turned her massive head to look down at Elena. You believe my subjects can learn to understand these emotional concepts, even though they were not created for them? I believe beings capable of thought and feeling can learn to love, regardless of how they were created, Elena replied. But the choice has to be theirs. You can't force someone to feel compassion any more than you can force them to be happy. All you can do is show them what's possible and give them the freedom to choose. As if summoned by their conversation, another communication arrived, this one from an unexpected source. Captain Nix, a relatively low-ranking military officer from the Border World Echo Station, appeared as a hologram with a report that would change everything. Your Majesty, I hope I am not overstepping my authority by contacting you directly, but I wanted to report on the changes we have implemented based on your new guidance about individual care and concern. Queen Lyra leaned forward with obvious interest. Continue, Captain Nix. We have established what we call family units among our personnel. Beings who work well together are grouped not just by function, but by compatibility and mutual support. When someone is injured or struggling, their family unit provides comfort and assistance. Productivity is actually increased by 18% because our people feel valued and supported. Elena watched Queen Lyra's reaction with fascination. The alien queen's eyes brightened to colors of hope and vindication as Captain Nix continued his report. More importantly, Your Majesty, our people are experiencing something new. They smile now, even though such expressions were not part of their original programming. They take pride in their work beyond mere functional completion. They protect and care for each other in ways that go beyond duty or orders. When the transmission ended, Queen Lyra stood in silence for several minutes. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a note of wonder that Elena had never heard before. Elena Vasquez, I believe I am beginning to understand what you meant when you said that love makes beings stronger. Captain Nix and his people have discovered something my empire has lacked for 40,000 years, the joy of caring for each other. Elena felt tears forming in her eyes as she realized the magnitude of what was happening. Your Majesty, you're not just learning to be a mother to individuals. You're becoming a mother to your entire civilization. Queen Lyra's crystal crown blazed with light as she turned to face Elena fully. Then I must continue this path, regardless of the opposition. If some of my subjects can learn to love and be loved, then all of them deserve that opportunity. But even as Queen Lyra spoke these words of determination, both she and Elena knew that the real test was yet to come. The changes spreading to the collective had not gone unnoticed by those who preferred the old ways, and storm clouds were gathering on the horizon of their crystalline paradise. The next morning brought news that would challenge everything Queen Lyra had learned about love, sacrifice, and the courage required to protect those who depended on her guidance. The alarms that pierced through the palace ship's crystal corridors were unlike anything Elena had heard during her 8 months aboard Queen Lyra's vessel. The harmonious chimes that usually announced routine communications had been replaced by harsh, discordant notes that made her teeth ache and her heart race with instinctive fear. She found Queen Lyra in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing star maps painted with the red glow of enemy vessels. Admiral Keck stood before the Queen with his crystal form radiating tension and barely controlled anger. "Your Majesty, the rebel fleet has emerged from hyperspace at the edge of our system. They're led by General Voss and backed by the governors of 12 worlds. They demand your immediate abdication and the restoration of what they call proper collective order." Elena watched Queen Lyra's massive form remain perfectly still as she processed this information. The alien queen's rainbow organs pulsed in patterns Elena had learned to recognize as deep calculation, but there was something new in her posture, a protective stance that reminded Elena of a mother bird shielding her nest from predators. "What are their specific demands?" Queen Lyra asked, her voice carrying none of the fear Elena felt churning in her own stomach. "They want you to renounce all policies related to individual care and emotional consideration," Admiral Kex replied. "They demand the immediate termination of family unit programs, the cessation of personal concern for injured workers, and a return to pure efficiency-based governance. They also demand," his voice faltered, "continue, Admiral. They demand the execution of the human Elena Vasquez as the source of what they term emotional contamination of our species." Elena felt the blood drain from her face as the full implications hit her. Her efforts to teach Queen Lyra about love and family had created a schism that now threatened not only her own life, but the stability of an entire interstellar civilization. She thought of her children back on Earth, Maya, James, and Anna, who might never see their mother again because she had dared to share the simple truth that love makes being stronger. Queen Lyra turned to look at Elena, and in those massive, color-shifting eyes, Elena saw something that took her breath away. It was the same fierce protectiveness she had seen in human mothers when their children were threatened, a love so powerful it transformed fear into fury and weakness into unstoppable strength. "Admiral Kex, open a communication channel to General Voss immediately." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a crystalline being whose form radiated cold authority. General Voss stood 12 feet tall like Queen Lyra, but where the Queen had learned warmth and compassion, the general's presence spoke only of rigid discipline and calculated cruelty. His crystal crown was shaped like a weapon, all sharp angles and threatening points. "Queen Lyra, your reign of emotional weakness ends today," General Voss declared without preamble. "For 40,000 years, the collective has maintained perfect order through efficient hierarchy and logical decision-making. Your adoption of human emotional defects has reduced our productivity, created chaos among our populations, and weakened our species' genetic superiority." Queen Lyra stepped forward, and Elena could see the transformation that had occurred over the past months crystallizing into something magnificent and terrible. The alien queen's voice, when she spoke, carried the authority of eons, but also the protective fury of a mother defending her children. "General Voss, you speak of weakness, but you are wrong. I have learned that true strength comes not from dominance, but from the willingness to sacrifice everything for those you love. The changes you call weakness have created bonds among our people that make them stronger, more creative, and more loyal than any amount of fear-based control ever could." "Sentiment and delusion," General Voss replied dismissively. "Your subjects serve you now because they're confused by these alien concepts. Once we restore proper order and eliminate the source of contamination, they will remember their true nature." Elena realized that General Voss was referring to her as the source of contamination, and she felt a familiar surge of the same protective instinct that had driven her to leave Earth in the first place. But this time, she wasn't protecting her own children. She was part of a larger family that included Queen Lyra and all the beings who had begun to discover the transformative power of love. "You will not harm Elena Vasquez," Queen Lyra declared, and her voice made the crystal walls of Command Center resonate like a bell. She has given our people something we never knew we were missing, the ability to care for each other not because we must, but because we choose to. General Voss's form brightened with contempt. Then you choose civil war, Lyra. My fleet numbers 300 vessels. Your loyal forces number perhaps half that. Surrender now, and I will allow you to live in exile on one of the outer worlds. Continue this path of emotional corruption, and I will destroy everything you have built. The communication ended abruptly, leaving the command center in tense silence. Elena watched as Queen Lyra's advisors exchanged worried glances, their crystalline forms flickering with uncertainty. Admiral Keck stepped forward with obvious reluctance. Your Majesty, General Voss is correct about the fleet numbers. If we engage in direct combat, our losses will be catastrophic. Perhaps we should consider negotiating terms that might preserve some of the changes you have implemented while satisfying the demands for traditional order. Elena saw something in Queen Lyra's posture that reminded her of herself 8 months ago, standing on Station Alpha and preparing to meet an alien species for the first time. It was a moment when a being must choose between safety and principle, between survival and sacrifice. Admiral Kex, you suggest that I abandon the beings who have learned to love and trust under my care in order to preserve my own position. You ask me to sacrifice those who depend on my protection to appease those who see them as mere functional units. Queen Lyra's eyes shifted to colors Elena had never seen before, deep purples and golds that seemed to burn with inner fire. A mother does not negotiate away her children's well-being to secure her own safety. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she realized what Queen Lyra was saying. The alien queen had internalized the most fundamental lesson of parenthood, that sometimes love requires standing against impossible odds to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Your Majesty, Elena said quietly, you don't have to fight this war because of me. If my presence is what's causing this conflict, I can leave. I can return to Earth and dash. No. Queen Lyra's response came with such force that the crystal floor beneath Elena's feet vibrated. Elena Vasquez, you have taught me that love is not conditional on convenience or safety. I will not abandon you any more than you would abandon your children if they were threatened. Admiral Kex's concern was evident in his voice. Your Majesty, with respect, emotional decisions in military situations often lead to disaster. Logic suggests that preserving the greater good requires difficult sacrifices. Queen Lyra turned to face her assembled advisors, and Elena saw in her posture the same authority that had commanded an empire for 40 millennia, but now tempered with something new, the moral certainty that comes from knowing what truly matters. Admiral Kex, you speak of logic, but you fail to understand the logic of love. When a mother protects her child, she is not acting from emotion alone. She is preserving the future, maintaining the bonds that make civilization possible, and demonstrating the values that separate enlightened beings from mere animals. The Queen moved to the central command platform, her 6 arms working with fluid precision as she accessed the ship's communication systems. All vessels in the loyal fleet, this is Queen Lyra. Prepare for combat, but understand what we fight for. We do not fight to preserve my rule or maintain old traditions. We fight for the right of every being in our civilization to experience love, to form bonds of choice rather than duty, to care for each other as family rather than merely as functional units. Elena watched the responses come in from across the fleet. Some vessels acknowledged the orders with traditional military efficiency, but others responded with something new, messages of personal loyalty that spoke of chosen devotion rather than programmed obedience. Captain Nix from Echo Station appeared on the communication array, his form bright with determination. Your Majesty, my family units stand ready to defend not just your rule, but the new way of life you have shown us. We have learned to love each other, and we will not allow that gift to be taken away. Similar messages came from dozens of other commanders, each speaking not just as military officers, but as beings who had discovered the transformative power of caring for others. Elena realized that Queen Lyra's lessons had spread farther than either of them had imagined, creating a network of chosen families throughout the collective. But even as these messages of support arrived, the tactical displays showed General Voss's fleet moving into attack formation, 300 vessels against 150. with the added disadvantage that Queen Lyra's forces were trying to protect populated worlds while the rebels had no such constraints. Admiral Kex, what is our strategic position? Queen Lyra asked. The Admiral's response was brutally honest. Your Majesty, if we engage in conventional warfare, we will lose. General Voss has superior numbers, newer weapons, and the advantage of attacking rather than defending. Our only hope would be to retreat to the outer systems and attempt guerrilla warfare, but that would mean abandoning millions of beings to his rule. Elena saw Queen Lyra's crystal crown flare with light as the alien queen faced the impossible choice that every parent knows. The moment when protecting your children requires risking everything, including your own life. Then we will not engage in conventional warfare, Queen Lyra declared. Admiral Kex, prepare my personal vessel for departure. If General Voss wants to destroy what we have built, he will have to face me directly. Elena's heart stopped as she realized what Queen Lyra intended. Your Majesty, you can't mean to dash. Elena Vasquez, you taught me that a mother's love is fierce enough to face any danger to protect her children. General Voss believes that love makes us weak. It is time to show him how wrong he is. As alarms continued to wail throughout the Crystal Palace, Elena understood that the greatest test of everything Queen Lyra had learned about love and sacrifice was about to begin. 1 year had passed since the Battle of the Crystal Throne, and Elena stood on the observation deck of Queen Lyra's rebuilt palace ship, watching the most extraordinary sight she had ever witnessed. Below them, the planet New Haven sparkled with cities that defied everything Collective had once believed about civilization. Where rigid geometric structures had once dominated the landscape, organic communities now flourished with crystalline buildings that grew and changed according to their inhabitants' needs. The battle itself had been unlike anything in recorded galactic history. When Queen Lyra had taken her personal vessel to face General Voss directly, Elena had been certain they were flying toward their deaths. But what happened next had changed not just the outcome of the Civil War, but the very nature of the crystalline collective itself. Elena remembered the moment when Queen Lyra had appeared on every communication screen in both fleets, her massive form radiating the kind of maternal authority that had been missing from their species for 40,000 years. Instead of threats or military commands, the Queen had done something that stunned everyone involved. She had opened her heart to her people in a way no ruler had ever done before. My children, Queen Lyra had said, and those 2 words had carried more power than any weapon. For I see now that is what you are, not subjects to be commanded or units to be deployed, but children of my heart who deserve love, protection, and the freedom to choose your own paths. Elena had watched in amazement as Queen Lyra told the entire assembled fleet about her journey of discovery, about learning to love through Elena's teachings, about the joy she had found in caring for others rather than simply controlling them. The Queen had spoken of Captain Nix and his family units, of injured workers who deserved comfort, of the fierce protective instincts that drove mothers to sacrifice everything for their children's welfare. But the most powerful moment had come when Queen Lyra made an offer that no one had expected. Instead of demanding surrender from General Voss's forces, she had offered them something revolutionary: the freedom to choose. Those who wish to continue under the old system of efficiency and hierarchy may do so. Queen Lyra had declared, I will not force love upon anyone, for forced love is not love at all. But those who wish to learn what I have learned, who want to discover the strength that comes from caring for each other, who want to experience the joy of chosen family, you are welcome to join us in building something new. Elena remembered the long silence that had followed, stretching across space between the 2 fleets like a held breath. Then, one by one, ships had begun to change course. Not all of them. General Voss had maintained the loyalty of perhaps a third of his fleet, beings who truly believed that efficiency was more important than emotion. But 2/3 of the rebel vessels had crossed the void to join Queen Lyra's forces, their crews eager to learn about this thing called love. The battle that followed had been brief and decisive. General Voss, facing vastly reduced numbers and crews who were no longer certain of their cause, had retreated to the outer rim with his remaining followers. Queen Lyra had let them go, declaring that love could not be built on the foundation of forced conversion. Now, a year later, Elena watched children playing in the crystal gardens below. Not just alien children, but human children too. Families from Earth had begun settling in the collective, drawn by Queen Lyra's promise of society built on love rather than mere survival. Elena's own children were among them. Maya, now 17, had arrived 3 months ago with her father and siblings. She was studying crystalline engineering alongside alien students, her mathematical mind fascinated by the way love could be literally built into the structure of buildings and communities. James, 15 now, had started a music program that combined human melodies with the harmonic frequencies that resonated through crystalline architecture. And Anna, 9 years old and as curious as ever, had appointed herself the official ambassador between human and alien children, teaching playground games that worked regardless of how many limbs you possessed. Elena turned from a viewport as Queen Lyra entered the observation chamber, but the alien ruler was not alone. Behind her came a sight that still filled Elena with wonder: 3 young crystalline beings who had become something unprecedented in their species' history. These were Queen Lyra's adopted children, war orphans from both sides of the Civil War, who had lost their families in the conflict. Rex was the oldest at what appeared to be the equivalent of 12 human years, his crystal form already showing the deep blue coloration that marked him as intellectually gifted. Zara, roughly 10 years old in human terms, sparkled with the silver patterns that indicated artistic ability, while little Kai, barely 6, still showed the rainbow prismatic colors of early childhood. Mother Lyra, Rex said, using the title that had become standard among the children of the new society, the human children have taught us a new game called hide and seek. May we play it in the lower crystal gardens. Elena watched Queen Lyra's massive form bend down to Rex's level, her 6 arms moving in gentle patterns that the children had learned to recognize as affection. Of course, my dear one, but remember the safety protocols, and be back before the evening light ceremony. As the 3 young beings rushed off with excited chiming sounds, Queen Lyra straightened and looked at Elena with eyes that swirled with contentment and pride. Elena Vasquez, I find myself amazed daily by the simplest interactions with them. This morning, little Kai brought me a crystal formation he had grown himself. Imperfect by our old standards, but beautiful because it was made with love rather than programmed efficiency. Elena smiled, remembering countless similar moments with her own children. How does it feel, Your Majesty, to be called mother by beings who chose you rather than being assigned to you? Queen Lyra's crystal crown flared with soft light. It is the most terrifying and wonderful experience imaginable. Every day I fear I will make mistakes that harm them, yet every day they show me new depths of love I never knew existed. When Zara was ill last month and I sat by her bedside for 3 days straight, I finally understood what you meant when you said that a mother's love is fierce enough to move mountains. Elena walked to another viewport that showed the construction of what would become the collective's first university based on human educational principles. Instead of rigid caste-based training, young beings would explore their interests and abilities, guided by teachers who care about their emotional development as much as their practical skills. The changes have spread farther than either of us imagined, Elena observed. Admiral Kex tells me that 47 worlds have now implemented family unit programs, and productivity has actually increased across all sectors. Queen Lyra nodded, her massive form radiating satisfaction. It seems that beings who feel loved and valued work harder and more creatively than those motivated only by duty or fear. Captain Nix's success was not an anomaly, but a preview of what becomes possible when people care for each other. Their conversation was interrupted by a gentle chiming that announced an incoming communication. Elena was surprised to see her daughter Maya appear as a hologram, her face bright with excitement. Mom, Queen Lyra, you have to see what we discovered. The human-alien engineering teams have figured out how to create buildings that actually respond to the emotional needs of their inhabitants. When someone is sad, the walls provide comforting colors and sounds. When children are playing, the floors become softer and more springy. We're literally building love into the structure of our cities. Elena felt tears of pride as she watched her daughter's enthusiasm. Maya had found her calling in this new world, using her mathematical gifts to solve problems that had never existed before, how to create living spaces that nurture both body and soul. After the communication ended, Queen Lyra moved to the central platform where she conducted her daily address to the collective. But these broadcasts were nothing like the cold efficiency reports of the past. Now, Queen Lyra shared stories of children learning and growing, of communities coming together to help members in need, of the daily miracles that occurred when beings chose to love each other. My dear family, Queen Lyra began, using the term that had replaced subjects throughout a reformed empire. Today I wish to share a message from the settlement on Harmony 7, where human and crystalline families have created something beautiful together. The holographic display showed images of a community garden where human vegetables grew alongside crystalline light flowers, tended by children of both species working side by side. Elena watched as a human boy helped a young crystalline girl reach a high branch, while she used her natural luminescence to help him see in a shadowy corner of the garden. These children do not see differences in biology or origin, Queen Lyra continued. They see friends, playmates, family members chosen by the heart rather than assigned by genetics. They are showing us the future of our civilization, not human or crystalline, but something new and wonderful that combines the best of both. As the broadcast continued, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. She had come to the edge of space as a diplomat, hoping to prevent a war between species. Instead, she had found herself becoming part of something far more profound, the transformation of an entire civilization to the simple but revolutionary power of parental love. A gentle touch on her shoulder brought Elena back to the present. Queen Lyra had knelt down so that her massive head was level with Elena's, those color-shifting eyes full of gratitude and wonder. Elena Vasquez, there are no words in any language to express what you have given me. You taught me that true strength comes not from commanding others, but from loving them. You showed me that the greatest achievement of any ruler is not conquest or efficiency, but the well-being and happiness of those under their care. Elena reached out to touch one of Queen Lyra's crystalline hands, marveling at how natural this gesture had become. Your Majesty, you gave me something equally precious. You showed me that love has no boundaries of species or biology. When I watch human and crystalline children playing together, when I see families formed by choice rather than genetics, I know that we've created something that will outlast both our civilizations. Queen Lyra's form brightened with the deep contentment that Elena had learned to associate with maternal satisfaction. You made me a mother, Elena Vasquez, not through biology or programming, but through teaching me what it means to love unconditionally. And in becoming a mother, I discovered that I was not ruling an empire. I was caring for a family that spans the stars. As evening fell over New Haven, Elena stood beside Queen Lyra and watched the children return from their play, human and alien alike, chattering in mixed languages about games and discoveries and the thousand small adventures that filled their days. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as their growing society learned to balance love with responsibility, freedom with structure, individual needs with community welfare. But tonight, as Queen Lyra tucked her adopted children into their crystalline beds, while Elena taught them a human lullaby about stars and dreams, both mothers knew that they had accomplished something magnificent. They had proven that love truly was the strongest force in the universe, capable of transforming not just individuals but entire civilizations. The galaxy would never be the same, for an ancient queen had learned to love like a mother, and in doing so, had shown two species that family is not defined by genetics or programming. It is created through choice, sacrifice, and the daily miracle of caring for each other without limit or condition.